you had I went to your SoundCloud, in fact, and I listened to like three tracks on there, and it was Colorblind, Confide in Me, and then Smoke and Mirrors. Um, now, like coming out with some of your music, do you also produce your music, or do you work with a producer coming up with your instrumentals for these songs?
I always, I have this, I tried in my 20s, I tried to do everything myself and I wanted to be like this one woman band. I realized I cannot do everything myself. No man, no woman can do everything by themselves. We need, no man is an island. There's something
That's
about that
tough.
saying. So we need other people. And I started I think it's about 5 years ago, I really started writing with people. Up until that point, I'd always write by myself, and then I wrote the music, and then I had this idea of how it was supposed to be, but then I kind of like I had to, uh, of course, adapt because I was in bands, so other people had thoughts about how the instrumentation should be and stuff like that. But now I always work with great producers, so I find people that I vibe with and that have the right technical skills and musical skills, and then I rather pay professionals than trying to make my own dance track because it's so much harder than people think. They think it's just like putting a loop and then putting some synths on,
Yeah.
and then it takes finesse to make a great EDM house dance track. So I prefer to work with professionals on that point, but I always on my latest releases, I've always been a co-producer because I have thoughts about the instrumentation, about long, I
Yeah.
don't like it has this kind of beat, I need this kind of vibe, this bass is better than this. Let's have a breakdown, let's have a build up, let's do something. So I tend to be very much a producer, but not a technician on
Yeah.
my own songs. So I think it's time we start defining those roles because a music producer back in the 90s, 80s, 70s, that was not the person like typing the buttons, like pushing the buttons. It was the person saying, I want this for the track, I want that for the track, you know? And so these roles are kind of mixing. So I'm trying to call myself a producer even though I don't push the buttons.
Now, talking about, further about your tracks, tell us a little bit about Colorblind and, your concept for writing and creating that song.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I just have to say I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
That is, but I think um, those kind of emotions are what drives me. Not necessarily when you lose someone, but I think that to be in meaningful relationship is always a scary thing to do, to open up and to rely on people and to trust people and to love people. That's always scary, but is that is then you're into the core of what I kind of like want to do with my music. I want to go into that core. And it's funny that you mentioned Colorblind because Colorblind is one of my heart songs.
Yeah.
It's I remember I was in a session with this producer, calls himself Flöber, and we were gone. This was our first session together. It was in the beginning of the pandemics, in 2020. So it was in the beginning of the pandemic. uh, and and it was all of these emotions, I work as a singer in the event industry, and in 2 days, all of my gigs were canceled. I was
Wow.
like, shit, am I gonna live on the street? Do I need to sell my flat? Do I have to move home to my mom? It was so much frustration. And I think like for everyone during the pandemic, it was hard. It was tough. Even though if you had a steady income, if you had a place to live, if you had a boyfriend or whatever, it was a hard time because all the uncertainty and insecurities and yeah, all the not knowing. And so I remember in this session, me and this guy, Flöber, we were just like, are we even allowed to meet? Can we even meet up and make music? Okay, we have to keep a distance, you know? So the hook line, I'll lose my mind. I remember I was just like, I was so frustrated.
Mm.
So that was the first thing that kind of just like came out, and he loved it, and we kind of vibed on it. And then we started finding the chords, I played the piano, we found the chords, and then he just built this soundscape because the beginning of Colorblind is very fog on a cloudy
Yeah.
autumn day, very Nordic kind of vibe. And that was the whole purpose because all my emotions that day in that period was just like, I don't know what to do. So we just tried to put that in music. And it turns out, yeah, that became one of my own favorite songs.